So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Elastigirl. So let's start the series. It all began when I was battling this orange-haired man who was harming Naruto. I gave it my all to defend Naruto, but even though I hit him, I lost the battle and, if I remember correctly, my life. I knew I had been stabbed. When I opened my eyes, I saw that I was still on the same battlefield. As I walked up to him, I asked, "Naruto?" I tried to touch him, but it was immaterial. Ha! I turned around and saw my own body was there, but I was just a few inches from it. I tried to touch him again, but nothing worked and I don't feel him. It feels like I'm now a ghost. What do I mean by that? No way, I can't be dead. No matter how many times I tried, I was unable to return to my body and my life. It seemed as though only my soul was functioning at the moment while my body was not. Then I noticed something terrible. In his anger, Naruto unleashed the power of the Nine Tails because he thought I had been stabbed and he is all red. If I'm not mistaken, he was unable to distinguish between friend and foe in this state. Since I'm a spirit, he couldn't hear me when I called out for him. So all I could do was watch him battle that orange-haired man in his unconscious state. This is just awful. The next thing I knew, a portal was approaching and I had the impression that someone on the other side was screaming for me. Although I didn't want to leave Naruto in this state, there was nothing I could do to help him just now, so I went through the portal and found myself in a strange place. I said, "Where am I?" A voice answers my inquiry, "You're in the universe itself," and it has a feminine tone. It can detect that I need to ask questions. So it says, "Don't be frightened, my dear. I could tell that you have questions yourself." Why, yes. Like, am I dead? I initiated the initial inquiry. "You're in a near-death state, so you'll be back in your body as soon as it's healed," she said in response to the inquiry. "Well, you are, but you're going to be okay," she said. "Okay. For now, you're going to be placed in another world." "In another world?" I questioned, looking perplexed. "Yes, in another world, I am told. In it, there were people with special powers, and everyone used to love them. But now they're hidden from the world as they ended up becoming objects of hatred from ordinary people." Why is that? You'll know when you go there. The next thing I knew, I was at a park in a strange universe, and based on the way people were interacting, which seemed to be primarily amusement, a bright light flashed upon me. It will take some time to get used to this. I looked at my new surroundings and realized that I was in a different world than the one I had been living in. I searched the park for any signs that would indicate my current location and found one. Metroville Park. This indicates that I'm in the Metroville universe. I walked around it to get a sense of its size, and I found it to be larger than the Hidden Leaf Village. I couldn't think of a single word to describe the world I live in until I overheard two gentlemen conversing, and one of them used the word city. That's it. I now understand that the world I live in is a city. The only thing left to ask is, how can I find out more about this city I currently inhabit? As I continued to stroll, I came across the Metroville Library, a landmark. That's a good starting point. I went to the library and began reading a number of books. This indicates that I am in this world in a physical form, even as a spirit, so I can communicate with people here. I also learned a lot of new things about this world from the books I read, such as how technology is far more advanced here than in my world's villages. Yes, there are computers, but they are more technological than those in the villages. I also learned about the weapons used by people here, known as guns, which are used to attack others, unlike ninjas who use jutsu to attack their adversaries. This is abhorrible, so it's a good thing I only practice jutsu for self-defense. Speaking of jutsu, I attempted to activate my Byakugan and it succeeded, so I can still use it in this new world. However, I'm disturbed by the voice that spoke before I arrived here. There were people with special powers and everyone used to love them, but now they're hidden from the world as they ended up becoming objects of hatred from ordinary people. Fortunately, there is a computer, so I tried to access it and typed the words. People with special powers, hidden, and objects of hatred. As I hit the enter key, I saw the truth. This means I have to find out more about what she said. A terrible reality. I read about the article that happened 15 years ago about how a man's suicide was stopped because a superhero named Mr. Incredible attempted to save him when he didn't need to be saved. And I discovered that people are being unappreciative of superheroes, the people with special abilities, and are even suing them for saving their lives. How unappreciative that man is. If that wasn't enough, I saw another piece about how the people who used to go by train were suing Mr. Incredible because they believed he was attempting to keep them from falling off a track, but instead of blaming themselves, they blamed him for their injuries. I now see why persons with abilities are kept concealed from the public. For example, Naruto was despised by the villagers due to the 9 tails he carried within him. I won't be deterred by what I've learned about how this world differs from the one I grew up in terms of displaying abilities, but I will attempt to avoid using any of my jutsu here in order to avoid drawing unwanted attention. After finishing my research, I printed a map of the city so I would know where I was going. Finding a place to live is something I might as well do if I'm going to be here for a while. The problem is, how can I afford it? The next thing I knew, I was robbed by a man in a black ski mask. He actually stole me from my map. I decided to chase him because I was having a really bad day and I thought that some people wouldn't be bothered by my speed. Nevertheless, I cornered the thief in an alleyway. I yelled at him, "Hey, you! Give me my map back, right now." He teased me, "Or what, little girl?" Or this I said as I activated my Byakugan and he appeared alarmed. At least no one would be around to watch me using this power. "What are you, a super?" he questioned me fearfully. "You know they're not supposed to use their powers," he said. So, super is a term for people with powers. Get this straight to head, buddy. I may have powers, but I'm not a super. Then what are you? A ninja, or kunoichi if you prefer the female version of the word. The robber fired his rifle at that moment, but I was able to escape the bullets before hitting him once to put him unconscious. I then turned off my Byakugan, grabbed my map, and noticed an elderly woman approaching. "Oh, thank you, young lady," she murmured pleasantly as she accepted a bag from him that, if I recall correctly, had been stolen from her. I smiled and responded, "No problem, ma'am," since at least she was unaware of what had transpired. She made an accurate prediction when she said, "Judging by you carrying a map, you must be new in town." "Yeah, I'm new," I acknowledged her assertion. "Well, since you stopped this burglary, I guess I should pay you for your kindness." She then took money out of her wallet and presented it to me, $2,000 on paper. "I suppose the currency there is very different from what I was used to." She remarked, "Anyway, enjoy your stay in Metroville," before departing. The first thing I'll do now that I have money is hunt for a place to stay for a bit. Fortunately, a newspaper came flying over my head and I spotted some alternatives. I quickly picked one, and at least it costs just $800, which is, I believe, the world's currency. I made the decision to tidy up as soon as I entered this apartment. It might not look like the one I lived in, but it should be sufficient until I can return to my own world. At least there is a rectangular device that I can use to learn more about the world that is different from the one I lived in. After I finished my meal tonight, I turned on the gadget and began learning more about what's going on in this area. I was watching a movie when I heard someone knock on my door, so I checked the peephole to see who it was. Who might be here in this state at this time? What do they want? That must be the city's ruling power, based on my observation of an elderly man with 2 other men standing next to him. Fortunately, I had a kunai behind my hand as a precaution as I carefully opened the door. I believe I know, the thief must have told them about my use of my Byakugan. I said, "Yes, may I help you?" "Good evening, young lady. My name is Rick Dicker," the elderly gentleman said. "I worked for a government known as the National Supers Agency. I would like to ask you a few questions if you don't mind." That is, after giving it some thought, I allowed him entry, and since he told the other 2 men to remain outside, it's just the 2 of us. What a relief. Perhaps he's not a bad guy, even though his government is in charge of preventing these supers, people with special abilities, from using their abilities. I may perhaps have some questions for him. I tried not to show my nervousness when I inquired, what are you going to question me for? But he could see it somehow. The first thing he posed was, that thief you were chasing, we took him in and mentioned your eyes changing. Is this true? I honestly said, yes, it's true, and I believe I can trust him since he resembles the third Hokage in a reasonable way. I understand, Dicker said. Are you new to this town? Yes, I am, I honestly said in response to that. When I said I see, he comprehended. Tell me everything that happened before you got here, he said. Since he seemed trustworthy, I made the decision to tell him everything that had transpired, including Naruto's fight with the orange-haired ninja, my struggle to defend him, and his use of the Nine Tails power. All of it. I'm getting too old for this, Dicker said. In fact, you're not the first person who had those eyes coming here, especially with that power, so there was someone else who had the same power that came here before? Yes, young lady, there is. Who is it? You'll know in time. For now, just enjoy your life here before you go back to your world. The government will handle the rent and bills, so don't worry. In a couple of days, you're going to school. I see. Do you have any questions? It's odd that a complete stranger is helping you out of nowhere. Yeah, I have question. It's my turn to inquire. Why does everyone in the world hate supers? They used to love them, but now it's the opposite, like how Naruto was hated because of the Nine Tails inside him. There are some things in the world people just couldn't understand, like the man who tried committing suicide 15 years ago. He replied to my query. To answer your question, it must have been something to do with the lawsuits people had over them for their acts, despite of them being heroic. That's all I can tell you. For now, I see. Dicker tried to escape, saying, anyway, have a good evening, Ms. I said to him, Hinata. Hinata Hyuga, and before he left, he commented, Hinata, interesting name. I'm learning about this world on my first day here, and I just wish to experience it to the fullest before returning to my own. I've been stranded in this new world for 2 days now, but at least I'm figuring out how to survive. I am now attending Western View Junior High School, and even though I went shopping for new clothes, I still wear the same clothes from my home world. The only item I did not wear was my ninja headband, which I wore as a choker because it is forbidden to wear jewelry on school property. I believe this rule will help me conceal the fact that I am not from this world. I must thank Dicker and his government for giving me this type of loan. Naturally, I forgot to bring my pack where I keep my ninja gear. I went to the receptionist as soon as I arrived at the school to get started. Excuse me, I said to her. She said to me, hello there. How can I help you? I show her a piece of paper from my backpack and say, I was told to give you this. She begins reading it and types some text into the computer. Okay, Ms. Hyuga, here's your class schedule and locker number, she says. It may be longer than the academy in my world, but I'll get used to it. She hands me a piece of paper with my class schedule on it. My classes are history, English, math, PE, science, and art. Of course, there's a lunch break in between PE and science. I chose to go to my locker, which is a 1-16, before I left for my first lesson. After I had arranged my belongings, a guy ran into me and I fell to the ground. All I could hear him say was that he was running late for class. A brown-haired adolescent lad with blue trousers and a black turtleneck said, "Oh, I'm sorry for running into me in a rush." "I didn't see you there," he said. "Don't worry about it," I comforted him. This is not the first time a guy bumped into me because of being late for something, and you won't definitely be the last. "Oh, thank goodness," he murmured pleasantly as he held out his hand for me to help me rise up. He began to introduce himself, acting apprehensive and hardly looking at me. "Oh, I'm Tony Ridinger," he added. Then I introduced myself. "I'm Hinata Hyuga. Hinata, judging by your name, you're from Japan, right?" Tony responded, "Yeah, that's right," I said, nodding. I must give Dicker credit for giving me this background because it's better for people like him to be unaware that I'm not from this society. He inquired curiously, what is a foreigner like you doing here? I told him, honestly, I'm here to learn about this city known as Metroville in response to his query. Guess the city has become a tourist attraction for someone like you, huh? Yeah, I've been exploring it 2 days ago before my enrollment here. I see. Before leaving, Tony remarked, well, gotta get going, see you some other time. I replied him, same here, which was a comfort. I had just learned something about him from our first discussion. He seemed pleasant but also reserved. Anyway, I'm off to history for my first class. Introduce yourself, said Ms. Anderson, the instructor. Hello, everyone, I'm Hinata Hyuga, I said, appearing bashful. I see you're shy, so you'll be seating next to a girl with the same personality. She actually led me to a seat next to a girl who was dressed in dark blue trousers, white socks, black sneakers, and a thick dark blue sweater. Her long, straight black hair nearly hid her face, and I could tell that she was just as shy as I was. I chose to strike up a conversation with her as I sat down next to her. Hi, I said to her. She turned to face me and said hello in a low voice that only served to highlight how silent I was. I told everyone here my name, just call me Hinata, I said. She said, my name is Violet Parr, but you can call me Violet. Understood, I replied. Nice to meet you, Violet. Nice to meet you too, Hinata, she said, nodding as she grinned at me. Naturally, I grinned back, and we shook hands, signifying the start of our friendship. Ms. Anderson began writing on the chalkboard, saying, now that you two shy girls have been acquainted, let's begin the lesson. I took notes as the session began, which brought back memories of my time at the academy. After this class ends for the day, it's time to move on to the next one, which is English. As I was about to leave the room, I observed something about Violet. Violet, I'll be going to the next class, so we won't be together for A, she said. In reality, I don't see her. All I see are her clothing, which are shaped like a person is wearing them even though no one is visible. While this caught me off guard. Does this imply that she has special abilities? I could tell Violet was hiding from someone by utilizing her invisibility skill, which makes me think of the time I was trying to hide from Naruto because I was so shy. I suppose this indicates Violet has someone she's hiding from, and I can tell she has a crush on someone. I chose to use the Byakugan to determine who she was hiding from based on her face, and I discovered the answer, writing her Tony naturally, it must be him. That's really kind of her, and it actually makes me think of how I hid from Naruto. Both of us are timid females with clear crushes, but our shyness prevented us from approaching them. It appears that we have more in common than we initially believed. I went up to her and said, having a crush on him, I see, you can tell that. Her voice sounded out of thin air with all that invisibility. Then, as if she realized I was watching her from behind, the collar of her sweater turned around and I could tell she was scared because I saw her going into invisibility. It's as if her secret is now out and I'm just glad she didn't scream so she wouldn't draw too much attention. You didn't see empty clothes standing here, did you? She asked, closing the door. I replied, I saw it, no doubt, as I noticed Violet attempting to retreat from me while still invisible and wearing clothes that were visible. She is afraid that her secret has been revealed, so I will attempt to talk sense into her head by saying, look, I know what you're thinking, but stay calm. I'm not going to tell anyone about your powers. In fact, let me show you this in return. When I turned on my Byakugan once more, I saw her. She seemed terrified that her secret was being revealed, but her expression changed from one of fear to one of wonder when she saw how powerful I was. She questioned, you? You have powers too? I informed her, yes, I have powers too, as I switched off my Byakugan and grabbed her invisible hands out of her sleeves. Don't worry. I won't tell anyone your secret. You can trust me, I said. At that moment, she returned to view and gave me a grateful smile. She murmured, thank you, Hinata. as I comforted her by touching her face. At least her return to public view indicates that she is ready to confide in me about her secret. No problem, Violet, I said with a smile. You'll keep my secret in return, right? She answered honestly, of course, we're friends now, right? Right, I held out my hand and she held out hers, but only hers is invisible. I glanced at her face and saw that she was once again invisible, and when I touched her invisible hand from her empty sleeve, it became visible again. I handed her my schedule paper and she compared it to hers, saying, "Anyway, we should move to our next class. May I see your schedule? It seems we're only together in history, PE, and art. Of course, we have our lunch break to spend our time together," she said. As I walked out of the room, I said, "Good to know, see you later." She said, "See you later too, Hinata," and walked out of the room. As we head to our different classrooms, I'm honored to have such a shy girl as my first friend. In fact, I'm going to confide in her about my life and my activities there. My English and math classes are going well. I just took notes and responded to questions when they came up, though I did raise my hand if there were any that I knew I could answer. Of course, this is what I do at the academy. In any case, the bell rings, and I have a lunch break before going to PE at the gym. I headed to the cafeteria, and I'm glad I made my own lunch on my first day here. I sat down next to Violet when I spotted her. Violet questioned me as she bit into her sandwich. "So, how do you like school so far, Hinata?" I answer her query, "It's great, Violet. Didn't expect it to be longer than the previous school in my world." As I dig into my rice and fish supper, she said curiously, "Previously attended school in your world?" I believe I can confide in her with my secret. Let's get to know each other. Then, first, I told her about myself. I told her that I'm not from this world, but from another world where ninja existed. In it, there are no cars, but we run around and jump from tree to tree. Good thing I haven't left out the part that we can stand and run in rivers also. We use jutsu to defend ourselves from any threats like the one I showed her, the Byakugan. When she asked me about it, I told her it allows me to see targets far away from my position. To see people through objects, like how I saw Tony through the wall when I saw her hiding from him, and seeing chakra, the word for key from the world I live in. In other words, think of it like X-ray vision, and she understood it. At least she now knows that whenever I use that power, I can see her when she's invisible. I told her that I use a fighting style known as the gentle fist to take advantage of this ability. Lastly, I told her that I'm from the Hidden Leaf Village, and I showed her my leaf headband secretly as proof. And she believed it all without saying a word. She continued by telling me about herself. She lived with her parents, had 2 younger brothers, and was the oldest child in the family. She loves purple and enjoys reading magazines and listening to music. She also told me that she has the ability to create force fields out of thin air in addition to turning invisible, which I understood because it reminded me of one of my techniques called Protective 8 Trigrams 64 Palms. In addition, I informed her about my family history. I grew up with my father and, like her, I am the eldest kid in the family with a younger sister. I also have an older cousin who I can't overlook. Violet remarked, sipping a glass of water. "That's quite an interesting family." I honestly told her, yeah, although screwed up at first because I still remembered how harsh Niji was to me until he lost to Naruto in the Chunin exams, which caused him to shift his attitude toward me from mean to polite. A cocky voice says, well, and we see 2 teenage girls coming toward us. Based on Violet's terrified expression, I assume that these are the school's bullies. One of the girls is blonde and dressed in pink, while the other is brunette and dressed in green. The new girl is already friends with a shy girl. Then again, she's shy like her, Violet says. With minimal anger, I questioned, "What do you 2 want?" "Let's introduce ourselves," the blonde girl said. "My name is Teresa Winslet," she said. The brunette added, "And I'm Eloise Winslow," to her introduction. "Now that we introduced ourselves, I want you to abandon this shy girl and come with us. Instead, I will never do anything like that." I said, "In that case, no thanks," in response to their proposal. Listen, new girl, you don't know who you're talking to. Exasperated that their offer was turned down, Eloise replied. As I calmly got up from my table, I looked at them and said, "Oh, I think I do know. I suggest you two get out of here before I do something that you'll regret." Teresa taunted. "Like what?" "Oh, she's tempting fate indeed." "Like this?" I said, grabbing her and frightening her by turning on my Byakugan. With terror, she exclaimed, "What are you?" I'd rather not tell her that I'm a ninja since I'm sure that no one will believe her if she even considers telling anybody about what occurred. I let her go and switched off my Byakugan. "I'm just a foreigner, nothing more," she said. Teresa and Eloise said, "Come on, let's go," and I returned to the table to finish my lunch when I noticed Violet was still staring at me. I worriedly questioned, "Are you okay, Violet?" In answer, she said, "Yes, I'm okay, Hinata, and thank you for sticking by me just now." She blushed as I smiled at her and said, "No problem, that's what friends are for. Anyway, let's go to the library. At least we have a few minutes before we go to our PE class," I said, recalling how I flushed whenever Naruto was around. "So that we can chat more to ourselves, we go to the library." She picked out a book on psychology, and I picked up one about martial arts. "We can read as we converse." I began by saying, "I have to tell you, Vi, that guy you're hiding from is lucky, indeed. What do you expect? He's the most popular guy in the school," she stated to me. I realized, I see, unlike someone I know. She asked me worriedly, "What do you mean, Hina?" I also appreciate the moniker she's given me at the moment. "I'm talking about this boy that I liked in my world," she responded. "You know, like you and Tony, I see what you mean," she said, comprehending the meaning. "Anyway, he's like a foil to him, if you ask me. How so?" I made the decision to tell her everything about Naruto, particularly how he is different from Tony. For instance, he is not popular, unlike Tony, especially because of the 9 tails inside of him. Speaking of that, I informed her that he was shunned by the Leaf as a result, and that everyone detested him. As a result, he started causing trouble in order to attract attention. As a result, Naruto had a record, unlike Tony. In spite of this, a small number of individuals, including myself, liked him. Violet could see how fortunate Naruto is to be able to continue living his life in spite of all the hate he has seen. It requires some bravery on his part, that is, she realized. "I see what you mean, yeah," I answered, smiling a little because he had been mistreated all his life. "He's only a troublemaker because he wanted love from the villagers. He's really a nice person once you get to know him," I continued, pointing out that the supers in this new world are being shunned just as he was in ours. "That's good to know." Violet understood what I was saying. "His personality reminds me of Dash. He's just doing what he does because he wanted to go out for sports. But Mom forbids him from it due to his superpower, which is running at super speed." "Oh, I understand," I thought. Good thing I understood this world enough to know that we have to keep our powers hidden from the world. At that moment, the school bell rang, and Violet and I from the library to head to our upcoming P.E. "I'm hoping this class will be as engaging as the academy." Violet pointed me in the direction of the school auditorium, which is where our PE session is held. I asked her curiously, "So, what is this subject in the school called PE means anyway?" As she showed me a baseball field, basketball court, and small football stadium, she replied, "PE stands for physical education, so we mostly just run laps around the field track or play team sports." I'm glad I watched that rectangular device called a TV or television to know how to do these sports, because it's not like that in my world. "Hinata, how did you spend your PE in your world?" she asked. "In my world, PE is mostly used for training in taijutsu, a technique that involves with martial arts. In other words, it's like hand-to-hand combat, like the gentle fist fighting style you and your clan used." "Yeah, it's something like that." She led me to the girls' locker room where we changed into our gym attire. We then played a game called dodgeball, which is fortunate for us because the goal is to hit every member of the other team with a ball in order to eliminate them. I suppose that sounds easy enough, but we ran into some issues because Teresa and Eloise were on the other team. Teresa threw a ball in my direction and I dodged it, so I picked it up and gave it to Violet. I've already made my move, so now she should make hers. I accept the ball, she tosses it to Teresa, and we won the game. I'm trying to keep a low profile so that people don't know that I'm a ninja from another world, but I see Violet doing a good job of it as well. When she falls to the ground and the ball is about to reach her, I manage to kick it back to Eloise, the person who threw it to her. There may be a rule that says catching the ball will also get me out of the game, but I didn't catch it, so I kicked it. I'm glad I used what I learned at the academy to get through this class, and I even copied notes on how to make a mixture of chemicals just in case I ever tried to make my own ninja weapons in this world. After we changed back into our regular clothes, we went to our separate classes once more. I'm heading to the classroom where my science class is held. I went to my art class and found that Violet and I were together once more. This is a more interesting class than the one from the academy, in my opinion. After that, we are waiting for her mother to arrive outside the school, which is fortunate because it is safe for me to wear my leaf headband around my neck. Violet questioned, "You like wearing that too much, don't you?" "It shows my loyalty to the village I'm from in my world," I replied truthfully. A lot of ninjas wore this on their foreheads as their symbol and loyalty. I can assume not everyone wore those on their foreheads. Yeah, like me. I wore this on my neck. If only you could see Sakura here. She wore this as her hairband. I see, she said, realizing this. Violet moaned as a car suddenly drew up in front of us. If I recall correctly, the driver is Violet's mother, and she appears to be a familiar face. Hold on a second, isn't that Elastigirl? Naturally, I didn't forget about my research in this world when I arrived. I recalled seeing her picture, and I was simply incredulous to see one of the greatest superheroes in the world before me. Based on the appearance of things, she's doing a good job of blending in, lest she encounter hostility from the public if they discover she's a super. Violet grinned as she hurried to the car and said, "That's my mom. Bye, Hinata." As she got into the car and drove away from the school, I said, "Bye, Violet," in return. As I watched her go, I couldn't help but think, her mother is Elastigirl. At least she's lucky to have a mother in addition to a father. I grew up with a father for the majority of my life. I wonder what it's like to have a mother. I think I might get some answers when I introduce myself to her. What should I do now that the school day is over? I chose to visit the city after looking at its map, and the sites I have already learned about are Metroville Park, Metroville Library, Metro Rail Transit, and most recently Western View Junior High. One location that I haven't yet explored is Metroville Mall. In any case, I have plenty of time to tour this site before returning to my apartment to finish my homework. Speaking of homework, I'm fortunate to have 2 assignments. One in science and one in history. Let the exploration commence. And what greater method of exploration could there be than walking? The default mode of transportation in my environment, I have to admit that even though I live in a much larger world than the one I was on, I still prefer to walk to get to places because that's how ninjas get from one place to another. Of course, if there are continents far away, we use boats. Let's not forget about jumping from tree to tree and rock to rock. In the area I'm on, there aren't many trees or big rocks to jump on, so I end up jumping from building to building. Fortunately, no one seems to notice, which is good because it means that the locals won't know that I lived in a different world. It just took me half an hour to go to Metroville Mall, which is a vast structure. I have never seen a mall like that in my life, but at least I now know what the word mall means. It's a big structure with a number of shops and eateries connected to each other. What should I do first, then? I know I should go to a bookstore and buy a book about history so I can understand how this world differs from the one I came from. At least there was a book about ninjas, so I bought that too. Perhaps there is something interesting to learn about how the ninjas in this world might differ from those in the world I came from. I'm glad I found a nearby chemistry set because I can use it to make my own ninja weapons using chemicals. I then made the decision to buy some chocolate-flavored ice cream with the money I had received in order to help me unwind when I got home. As I was doing so, I happened to spot a black man and hid in the corner to observe him. He was drinking from a fountain when he simply threw a beam of ice into an empty stand. I just figured out who that is. Frozone. Although Elastigirl and Frozone are doing a better job of fitting in with their environment, I never imagined that I would cross paths with another superhero in this planet. A voice yelled out to me, "Excuse me," and I noticed a young boy with a cap on his head crying out to me, "What are you doing?" I calmly reply, "Just checking for this guy, that's all," to the query. "Are you a spy?" he asks, looking shocked by what I stated. "Maybe I attempted." He exclaimed, "That's so cool," as I gazed into his eyes. He was being honest, so I wondered what he thought of supers. Perhaps I should ask him the following question. I dragged him to the corner and asked, "Can I ask you something important?" I turned to see Frozone walking away. "What is it?" inquired the child. "What do you think of supers?" "Well, I think they're cool. Perhaps not everyone despises supers, but seeing those guys being hated here reminded me of how Naruto was despised in our world because he had the nine tails inside of him. I looked into his face to make sure he was telling the truth, and his expression was calm and happy, indicating that he had no malice toward them. I said, "I see," and then I chose to test his veracity by saying, "I'm going to show you this, kid, but keep this yourself, understand?" He questioned, "What, are you a super?" "No, I said, turning on my Byakugan." He seemed shocked because I thought he would be a ninja. "Mean what?" "A ninja, you know." I demonstrated to him that I am a ninja by the weapons I carry, which is sufficient evidence that he believes me and that he will keep this a secret. What a relief, at least he is a human being who has no malice toward the supers. The only thing I didn't tell him was that I'm not from the world I'm currently standing on. After leaving the shopping with everything I would need for the day, I switched off my Byakugan. Underscore 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 underscore. After that, I went to my apartment to finish my homework, and I was astounded by how difficult it was, but I used what I had learned to get through it. I prepared a nice dinner for tonight, which is a dish called steak, and when I took a bite of it, I was struck by how delicious it was. At least this world's cuisine has some good taste as well. I choose to spend a few hours watching TV after I finished my meal. Fortunately, there are channels about science and history, but I also watch cartoons to unwind. What a day! As I fall asleep, I hope tomorrow will be just as wonderful. When I arrived at school, I noticed Violet being dropped off by her mother, Elastigirl, after taking a shower, getting dressed, and eating a satisfying meal. How coincidental that we would cross paths in this way after I enrolled at Western View Junior High. When they first spoke, Elastigirl said, "Have a good day, sweetie." "I will, Mom," is a wise reply from Violet. "Bring Hinata over after school. We sure love to meet your new friend." "Okay, Mom, I will." I'm getting an invitation from Elastigirl? If I'm not mistaken, Violet must have told her family that we met yesterday, so it's clear that they wanted me to visit the house after school. This should be fascinating. I've made up my mind and accepted the invitation. I went up to Violet as Elastigirl drove away from the school. I remarked behind her, "She sure likes to meet me after school." She turns to face me and exclaims, "Hinata!" with a startled expression. "Did you hear what we talked about?" "Yeah, I heard it," I reply, grinning, "and I would love to come over and meet your family after school." When I accepted the invitation, she smiled and said, "That's great." We had each other's addresses and phone numbers before entering the school, which was a smart idea. I remembered using a device called a cell phone for the last 3 days since I was transported to Metroville, and it was quite the experience. Nothing like that exists in my world. All we use are communicators that we put in our ears to communicate with each other. This device is more sophisticated than the communicator. In fact, it contains several features, including contacts, games, and more. If only there were a method to make using the communicator more enjoyable than merely using it for tasks. After lunch, Violet and I went to the auditorium early before our class started so that we could test out our extra powers. She would love to see my gentle fist fighting style, and I would love to see her force field power. As we entered the building, I realized that it was just another day of me finishing my classes the way I had done when I was at the academy. The suggestion from Violet was to show me first your gentle fist fighting style, okay? I said, turning on my Byakugan. I then demonstrated my fighting style moves to her, and she seemed impressed. I even demonstrated how I used my chakra to power up my fists, and she seemed impressed that she applauded. After that, I turned off my Byakugan and removed the chakra from my hands. I showed you my fighting style. Now you show me your force field power, I said. This gives her name a significant meaning. Here I go, she said, taking a deep breath before lifting both of her hands to create a force field in front of my eyes. It resembles a violet transparent bubble that will take some time to burst. What do you think? She asked. I said, it's great, Vi, it's great, praising her strength. Thanks, she said, blushing as though this was the first time someone had complimented her power. She placed her hands down and the force field vanished. We continued our classes after showing each other our extra abilities. When school ended for the day, Violet led me to the house where she lived, and naturally, I came up with the idea of walking her there. She claimed that there were times when she walked from school to home when her mother was too busy running errands to pick her up. There were introductions in the living room when we arrived. Mom, this is Hinata, the one I talked to you about yesterday, Violet began as she introduced me to her mother and younger brother, respectively. At least I get to see Elastigirl in person. Looking at Dash, he just made me think of Naruto's personality before he and Jiraiya left the village to train with him 2.5 years ago. Elastigirl says, Hinata, with a grateful expression, it's very nice to meet you. I'm her mother, Helen Parr, thus, that's who she really is. As we shook hands, I remarked, same here, Mrs. Parr. Please just call me Helen. Since you're a special friend of my daughter's, I'm allowing you to call me by my first name. Okay, Dash excitedly presented himself to me, saying, and I'm her younger brother, Dash. And I can run fast, hence my name, that's my superpower, see if you can catch me, he said. The next thing I know, he's attempting to test my abilities by rushing through the house to see if I can catch him. If my memory serves me well, Violet must have informed him that I'm a ninja. Helen objected, stop running in the house. It's okay, I'll stop him, I said, activating the Byakugan and examining the pattern Dash would be using to catch him with a string I had ready. When he moved, I noticed him and used the string to restrain him. Violet was astounded by what I had just done, and we exchanged a smile as I switched off the Byakugan. See, Hinata's a ninja like I told you yesterday, she said. The tiny kid responded angrily, yeah, I get it, as I released him. I muttered in Violet's ear, I'm glad I'm not the only one with an annoying younger sibling, referring to my younger sister Hanabi. Good to know, she responded. I saw that the infant is also having fun with this. Violet recalled to present me to her other brother, saying, I almost forgot, this is our baby brother, Jack, how cute, I said to the infant, who was beginning to warm up to me. Do you want to see a magic trick? I said. It's a yes since he answered the question well. Naturally, he cheered when I activated the Byakugan, so I switched it off after showing him what my eyes looked like. I had previously covered my eyes and then opened them to show him how they appeared. Vi, give your new friend a tour of the house while I prepare dinner, Helen said. I will, Mom, Violet said when she agreed to show me the house where she lives. I could have invited her to my world in the same way. Fortunately, I enjoy reading magazines and listening to music in my spare time. Violet gave me a tour of the house, which is really lovely. She showed me the kitchen, the yard, and the bedrooms, particularly hers, where she displayed the magazines she collected and the music she was enjoying. At that moment, the doorbell rang. I proposed, "That's your father, right?" "Yup," Violet responded. When we came downstairs to visit him, I was astounded to realize who it was. Mr. Incredible. Being friends with someone whose parents are superheroes is such a blessing. He turned to face me and said, "So you must be Hinata Hyuga?" "Yeah, that's me," I answer him. He seemed pleased enough to shake hands with me and say, "It's nice to see you." However, I seemed to notice that my hand was being grabbed so tightly that I was unable to free it. If I recall correctly, his ability was super strength. Curious, Violet asked her father, "You know her, Dad?" Her answer was, "No, but I do know her father." I was taken aback when I heard this comment. Is my father the person Dicker described as having eyes like mine? If so, did he enter this planet in the same manner as me? I needed answers to a lot of my questions. Mr. Incredible asked me, "Is your father Hayashi by any chance?" I informed him bluntly, "Yes, he is," while attempting to bear the agony of his gripping my hand. He said with excitement, "Isn't it exciting? Hayashi's child here in front of us." Helen's voice comes from the kitchen. "Yeah, I hear it. I'm attempting to escape Mr. Incredible's hold. I'm Bob Parr, but you can call me Bob. I'm getting anxious about formalities from someone who's new to this world." "Oh, sorry," he said, realizing he was gripping my hand tightly. "The appropriate thing to ask him is, how do you know my father?" "Okay," I realized. "We go way back," he stated to me. "One time, I came to aid him when he got here through a near-death experience." Dash and Violet ask, "A near-death experience?" They are shocked to learn this. If it were true, they would interrogate me about it and ask, "Are you okay? And are you a spirit now?" "Guys, dinner's ready." Helen called to let us know before they pressed me with more questions about how I got here, and we all gathered in the kitchen to have dinner. Her superhero name is Elastigirl, so it's clear that she has elasticity because I saw her arms stretching in ways I couldn't have imagined while she was setting the table. I was fortunate enough to be able to join the Parr family for dinner tonight. We will be having spaghetti and meatballs, which is another excellent food to try. I had a bite and it tastes great. Violet questioned me, "You like it very much, don't you?" I said to her simply, "Yeah, never had something like this in my world." Bob shared with the family during dinner how he first met my father some 15 years ago before supers were shunned in this world. He claimed to have met father when he saw him fall from the sky and nursed him back to health. Since then, they have been on adventures together before he is called back to his home world. It's incredible that my own father was born at one point. It makes me want to question him this when I return home. I decided to try taking the bus instead of walking back to my apartment after supper. I'm just experimenting with different things while I'm living here. I hope to return to my home world soon because I miss it. I got up for Saturday the following day. This indicates that it's the weekend. I had a satisfying breakfast of bacon and eggs after taking a shower and getting dressed, and I reflected about the times I've had this type of breakfast in the past. Right now, my sole question is, how should I spend my weekend in this unfamiliar world? Funny enough, I wasn't expecting anyone when I heard a knock on my door, but I still chose to check the peephole to see who it was. It was Violet, so I answered. She smiled as she said, "Good morning, Hina," to me. I asked her, looking perplexed, "Vi, what are you doing here?" She said, "Thought I might come by to help you spend your first weekend in this new world you're living," as she entered my flat. I honestly said to her, "And it's a good thing you came," adding, "I don't know what to do." First, we watch a Saturday morning cartoon. Saturday morning cartoon? What's that? She began teaching me a new term about what they call a Saturday morning cartoon, which is an original animated television program that airs on Saturday mornings in the United States. She wanted me to watch Action Girl with her, and we're seeing what she called the episode as the title character battles the forces of evil. I have to admit that this so-called cartoon is starting to get to me. In fact, I've never seen anything like this in the world I was raised in. She even claimed that in a Saturday morning cartoon, bad guys won't harm kids. This is completely different from the reality I live in. Take a look at me going on missions with Kiba, Shino, and Kurenai Sensei, but I'm only a child, and bad guys target us. I suppose that the purpose of these cartoons is to give kids something to watch so they won't have to worry about being targeted by bad guys if they ever have the chance. That's at least one way that fiction and reality differ. After the animation ended at 10 a.m., Violet asked me, "So, what do you think of the cartoon?" In fact, we're watching 2 episodes of the show within an hour. "It's good, actually," I said candidly to her. "I'm glad you liked it. You watch this every Saturday?" "Yup, and if you watch this from the beginning, you can go online to a computer," I informed her, anticipating her next words. She's shocked when I said the final phrase, "Wow, you know what a computer is? Just because I lived in a world with a few tech lines doesn't mean I don't know what a computer is," I stated in a straightforward manner. "Besides, they are computers available in the world I'm born from," I said. "I see," and she understood. "What's next?" "We go to the mall." I got up for Saturday, the following day. This indicates that it's the weekend. I had a satisfying breakfast of bacon and eggs after taking a shower and getting dressed, and I reflected about the times I've had this type of breakfast in the past. Right now, my sole question is, how should I spend my weekend in this unfamiliar world? Funny enough, I wasn't expecting anyone when I heard a knock on my door, but I still chose to check the peephole to see who it was. It was Violet, so I answered. She smiled as she said, "Good morning, Hina," to me. I asked her, looking perplexed, "Vi, what are you doing here?" She said, "Thought I might come by to help you spend your first weekend in this new world you're living," as she entered my flat. I honestly said to her, "And it's a good thing you came," adding, "I don't know what to do. First, we watch a Saturday morning cartoon." "Saturday morning cartoon? What's that?" She began teaching me a new term about what they call a Saturday morning cartoon, which is an original animated television program that airs on Saturday mornings in the United States. She wanted me to watch Action Girl with her, and we're seeing what she called the episode as the title character battles the forces of evil. I have to admit that this so-called cartoon is starting to get to me. In fact, I've never seen anything like this in the world I was raised in. She even claimed that in a Saturday morning cartoon, bad guys won't harm kids. This is completely different from the reality I live in. Take a look at me going on missions with Kiba, Shino, and Kurenai Sensei, but I'm only a child and bad guys target us. I suppose that the purpose of these cartoons is to give kids something to watch so they won't have to worry about being targeted by bad guys if they ever have the chance. That's at least one way that fiction and reality differ. After the animation ended at 10 a.m., Violet asked me, "So, what do you think of the cartoon?" In fact, we're watching 2 episodes of the show within an hour. "It's good, actually," I said candidly to her. "I'm glad you liked it. You watch this every Saturday?" "Yup, and if you watch this from the beginning, you can go online to a computer," I informed her, anticipating her next words. She's shocked when I said the final phrase, "Wow, you know what a computer is? Just because I lived in a world with a few tech lines doesn't mean I don't know what a computer is," I stated in a straightforward manner. "Besides, they are computers available in the world I'm born from," I said. "I see," and she understood. "What's next?" We go to the mall. Violet and I rode the bus to Metroville Mall, which I've visited before. Despite my familiarity with the area, she's showing me around some of the mall's hidden gems. Our first destination is an establishment she refers to as entertainment shop. Vi inquired curiously, is this your first time going into this store, Hina? I've never seen anything like this in my entire life, Vi, I replied candidly. I see, so this is your first time. She showed me the whole store, which included CDs that spawn movies and TV shows as well as CDs that spawn music. Speaking of the latter, Vi would obviously visit this store because she loves music. She even told me about music genres I'm unfamiliar with, like pop, disco, and hip-hop, which, now that I think about it, I had never heard of before. The only genres I'm familiar with from my birthplace are K-pop and P-pop. The next thing I know is that she led me to an area of the store where 2 sample headphones were attached to listening devices. In my planet, ninjas utilize earphones on missions. She handed me one headphone to put on while she put on the other, saying, since it's your first time here, I would think this is going to be the first time you listen to music. Shall we? She asked. She switches on the music from the box after I nod. I feel calm as I listen to its contents. Its beats are wonderful and nostalgic. The words fit the songs. I've never been this awed by music before. I was glad to learn what it's like to listen to unfamiliar music. We left the store after a little while, but not before making some purchases. Naturally, Violet got a music CD, which she is thrilled about, and I also got a music CD. I also got a movie CD for myself to watch later. Underscore 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 the bookshop we're going to. Next is the same one I visited, but even though I knew where it was, she showed me a section of it that I hadn't looked at, a shelf full of magazines. She remarked, I assumed you never checked out this part of the bookstore, expressing my amazement at this section of the shop. And I know the reason you went to this part of the store, I said. You like to read magazines, don't you? When she receives her magazine of choice, a girl's magazine, she smiles and says, yes, I do. Why don't you look around some more while I pay for this magazine, she asks. Okay. I chose to go to the part with the novels because I haven't read one in a long time. I looked and looked until I found a title that had to do with romance and ninjas. Fortunately, it wasn't plastic wrapped or I wouldn't be able to read it. I read the pages and am currently reading the novel. It's a good story. When I returned the book to its rightful place on the shelf, I noticed someone I hadn't anticipated seeing at the time, Hinata. That was unexpected, Tony. What are you doing here? I asked, startled to see him again. He glanced at the stand nearby and said, I came here to see if a new novel is now released in the store. And it's there. And I glanced at it to see what he was waiting for. I might think of buying it, he said. I see, I said, comprehending why he had visited this place. We heard an adolescent blonde boy remark, Hey, Ridinger, who's that? He's not by himself, though. In fact, he's with a guy with black hair. Friends of yours? I inquired regarding Tony's connection to those two. Yup, he said as they came toward us. Hey guys, this is Hinata, the person I spoke with about our meeting this Thursday because I'm late for class, he said. The other guy shook my hand and said, it's nice to meet you, understanding that I was referring to the Japanese girl. Same here, I said in a friendly manner. Better not tell them that I'm not from this world, as at least those two are also duped by my false pretense of being from Japan. So, how's life so far in Metroville? Tony inquired about my well-being. I replied to him courteously and honestly, I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking, adding, I'm learning a lot of things here. He inquired about my leaf headband, asking, what's that on your neck? I answered him honestly, it's my headband, but I'm also making an effort to blend in. The man with the black hair questioned me. But why are you wearing it on your neck? I told him the truth without revealing that I'm from the Hidden Leaf Village. saying, "Because not everyone in my country wore this on their foreheads." The blonde man then questioned me, "And what's with the symbol?" To be honest, these three wouldn't comprehend the world I come from. In fact, you guys wouldn't understand the kind of world I live in, so don't get too curious of something you don't know from my view, otherwise there's going to be trouble, understand? I said in response to the question. At least Tony understands what I'm saying when I say, "It's nice to meet you again, but we have to get going." "Same here," I answered courteously. He then departs with his two companions. I believe that our second talk is longer than our first, but at least they left in time for Violet to return to me with the money she paid for her purchase. She replied, "Hina, I'm back," but then she realized, did I miss anything? Nothing in particular. I better not tell her, and I better not tell her that he's just as timid as she is, that I met the man she's obsessing on again. Underscore 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 underscore. Our next destination is what she refers to as a photo booth. She informed me that each time someone enters, it takes a maximum of 6 pictures, so she suggested that we all enter at the same time. We strike joyful postures while the camera takes 6 shots, and each of us receives a set of those images. We should cherish this moment for the rest of our lives. She tried to strike up a conversation with me as we were making our way to the food court for lunch. "Hina," she said. I asked her curiously, "What is it, Vi?" to find out what she wanted to discuss with me. "I gotta tell you something very important. I'm listening. Before you came here through a near-death experience, I never had friends before." I know she's shocked to hear this from me and asks, "Wait, you know?" "Yeah, why else you would be sitting on some desk where no one is sitting next to you?" "I get it," I replied. "To be honest, like you, I don't have any friends. I spent my time alone in the academy before I joined a team with Kiba, Shino, and our teacher, Kurenai-sensei, to form Team 8. As time goes by, I learned to have new friends outside of our team." "I see." I questioned her, "Anyway, you haven't talked to him yet, have you?" And she recognized the person I was referring to. I could almost see her blushing. "I thought so," she said. She asked me again, "But what about your case with him?" And I knew who she was referring to. Like you, I tried to hide away from him, but being oblivious, he approached me and tried to talk to me whenever he can. Especially when we participated in some missions together. Of course, I wasn't ready for it. You know how a shy person would react when someone they love approached without being ready. Ah, right, yeah, she understands what I'm saying, at least. I teased her about the possibilities, saying, "Anyway, Vi, I just can't wait to see the look on your face when you realized he's behind you and that he found out your secret." The thought made her flush. "That would never happen. You'll never know. We're in the food court now, and since it's my first weekend here, I get to choose where we eat. I saw that this area of the mall is massive, and it's better than the academy canteen." Regarding my selection for where we would eat lunch together, I went with the vendor that had the typical meals I eat in my world. Vi praised my decision and said, "Good choice, Hina. Good choice," as we sat at a table. "If I'm not mistaken, that's the kind of food you ate in your world, right?" "Yeah," I verified based on her recent statement. "Did you know they're also from Japan?" "No, really?" We ordered 2 large bowls of ramen to eat, and I'm glad she's enjoying it. I like eating ramen too, and I remember the times Naruto came to Ramen Ichiraku to eat his favorite meal. Of course, I go there occasionally. She nodded her head, and I understood. I never thought that Japan had the same kind of cuisine from the world I'm from. We chose to grab ice cream after finishing our ramen, and I never imagined that we would run into someone in this place. "Frozone," he glanced at her and said, "Vi," and before turning to face me. I said to him, Hinata, Hinata Hyuga, and he shook my hand and said, Hinata, right, it's nice to meet you. Her father told me about meeting you last night, he said. I see, I comprehended. Violet met this man and told me his hidden identity. He's a family friend, so you could say she said. Hinata, this is Lucius, she said. I get it, I said, finishing her sentence. An uncle, right? Lucius smiled and said, First of all, what are you doing here in Metroville, Hinata? I don't know, thought I could stay here for a while until my physical body from the world I'm from healed, I replied truthfully. I see you came here in the way like your father did. Oh, so you know him as well? Bob and I did have some adventures with him, if you must know. Since this is our first encounter, Lucius has decided to buy me and Violet ice cream. This is my first weekend in this world, and it's the best one yet. At least my father not only met Mr. Incredible, but also Frozone. Underscore 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 underscore. It's time to go home. We took the bus once more. The only vehicle available in my world is a boat. In fact, we make them out of wood instead of metal like the ones I saw in photos from the world I'm standing on. I've never ridden anything like this in my world, and there aren't any cars, buses, or airplanes. When I spotted a man in black clothing during one of the bus stops, I recognized him. It was the same man who had attempted to steal my Metroville map. Fortunately, Dicker had shown me a photo of his face without the mask. He is blonde and unattractive. He began waving his gun at us and said, Nobody move. This is a robbery. As of this moment, the bus is now under my control. This cannot be good. I'm sure everyone is terrified of this, especially Violet, because the man used the bus as a hostage to demand that the next stop from a carnival deliver him all the money. If anyone gets involved, including the police, he will kill the hostages one by one. I wonder if the robber still remembers me and how he got away. If my understanding is correct, Dicker has the ability to delete the memories of anyone who learns about supers or their abilities. Maybe he didn't do this to the man? In any case, I will receive some responses. Violet, just stay in your seat, I advised her. I'm going to confront this guy without using my fighting powers if that's what you're thinking I would do, she said. Oh, okay, and let me handle the matter because I'm much braver than she is. After all, I'm a ninja. And I could tell that she was brought up to be a typical child, so she wouldn't know how to manage such a circumstance. I told him to just turn invisible in case he comes to this seat. All right, she said, becoming invisible once more. There's nothing here but clothes sitting here doing nothing. Right, she has the ability to turn invisible, but her clothing remain visible. Therefore, the only way to get rid of this issue is for her to remove them while her body is invisible. But who am I kidding? That will not occur anytime soon because I am living in a children's film. I got out of my chair to face the thief. He pointed his gun at me and exclaimed, Who the heck are you? He appeared shocked as though he had seen me before. You're that ninja girl I encountered before, he said. I see you remember me, I said nonchalantly, assuming Dicker had not managed to forget me. What do you intend to do with that money from the carnival? I said. He screamed at me. That's none of your business. In front of him, I activated my Byakugan once more and said, It is my business now. In fact, it is not nice to steal from those who do not belong to you, I said. He angrily tries to shoot me, saying, Why you? But I avoid the shot with my Byakugan. He tries again, but I avoid those shots. Eventually, he runs out of ammunition, and I hold his wrist to stop him as he tries to reload. I then stunned him by hitting him in the chest with palm bottom. This ought to assist in stopping the robbery. I saw that Dicker was on his way here, likely to permanently delete that guy's memory, and the police arrived just in time to capture him. I could tell that this also applied to the bystanders who witnessed my power, so I'm glad I switched it off afterward. After the robbery, Violet, who was once again visible, said, "That is a close call, but at least we're both safe." I concurred with her. I'd say Helen was heading in this direction at that moment, and I could see she was concerned about what had happened. With concern on her face, she said, "Vi, Hina, are you both okay?" "Don't worry, Mom," Vi told her parent. "We're okay, thanks to Hinata. I've never seen her handle this situation quite well." Helen turned to face me after realizing this. "I guess this proves you're braver and stronger than her," she said. "I know that, Helen," I replied. "Well, I gotta get going. Can you take Violet home now?" "Sure, I can," she said with a reassuring smile. After that, I left the streets. This was a memorable weekend. After 3 days, it's my first Wednesday at Western View Junior High, and I'm having another fantastic day. I made it through the entire day of classes, and I even received a perfect score on the history quiz today and the physical exam in PE. I feel fantastic, in fact. However, it's more vital to know what happens after school than what happens during the school day. Violet is loitering outside the school near the entrance after classes are out for the day. Naturally, I sought a hiding place behind a tree because I know what she's doing. Ring the bell is ringing, and notice who emerged from the front entrance first. Yes, him, the comic relief pair. "Hey, Ridinger, where are you heading?" Look at Violet. Every time she hides from him, that expression on her face reminds me of the time I was at the academy and I saw Naruto leave the school. That's another similarity between us. At least we're both hiding well from our boyfriends in this situation. A girl with dark hair said, "Hi, Tony." "Hey," he said back to her. Unlike Naruto, he at least has a charming existence. On the plus side, he always tries to be happy no matter what. After all, he never quits up no matter what. In any case, Tony turns to his right and I notice Violet is once again invisible. Fortunately, I'm here as a lookout because, although her clothes are still there, at least her head and hands are invisible. I used my Byakugan to see her and began sketching what's happening right now because I didn't think anyone was even interested in looking here. After he finally left the area, Violet was once more visible, so I switched off my Byakugan. She grinned as she replied. "He looked at me." I emerged from hiding and say, "Yeah, he did, even though he doesn't know you're there." "Hinata, how did I go?" "Good." She seemed pleased to see my sketch of her staring at Tony when I showed it to her. "At least Tier 2 is complete," I replied simply. "Eventually, you'll be interacting with him whether you're shy or what." I told her, "I'm going to try this little experiment tomorrow," and she blushed. She kept staring at him until we heard a horn blowing and we turned to see her mother was on her way to take her up. Dash calls for her. "Come on, Violet!" And she runs to the car as it drives off for 2 seconds before the window opens. I choose to approach the automobile to see what it is. Vi asked me, "Hinata, would you like to come over for dinner?" Another occasion to receive a dinner invitation, of course, why not? I said, "Sure, I'll come," when she invited me. Helen loved the concept and said, "Okay then, would you like a ride?" I graciously declined to give her a ride to the house, saying, "No thanks," Helen adding, "I'll just have some fresh air before going there." "Okay, I understand. See you tonight." After she leaves in the car, I wonder what will be for supper tonight. Anyway, I decided that a stroll through Metroville Park would be a good way to get some fresh air because I love to walk. Ninjas move around in this manner, and at least there are boats when they travel by water. Looking around the park, I noticed that people were unwinding, feeding birds, and most importantly, playing boats and kites. These were all enjoyable activities, and I had no idea how this environment could help people unwind. It's time to visit the Par home now. When I arrived, I noticed Bob having trouble shutting the door of his own car. It appeared that a small irregularity on the side of the roof was making it difficult. The window broke as he closed it, and he was so frustrated that he lifted it up and, if I recall correctly, intended to throw it away. Unfortunately, the child is back. He saw what had happened and burst out of his bubble in shock. Helen is correct. He struggles to keep his mask on, but I can already tell that he is bored with his everyday life. In any case, he stops the car and tries to get inside. But he just saw me and what he just did. He gave me a fierce look and said, "Not a word about this," before going inside. I went in the front door, eager to join the family for supper. I'm having dinner with the Parr family tonight, and I'm having meatloaf. I tested it out and it tastes quite good. I had something similar back in my world, but the way she prepared it is just so sweet and delicious. While dining, I noticed Bob reading a newspaper. What's up with that? In any case, Helen mentioned Dash getting into trouble once more. He is definitely a prankster, as evidenced by the fact that he uses his speed to avoid getting caught, especially when a camera is present. Normally, Bob would have reprimanded him, but he chose not to, which is another indication that he is disinterested in his everyday life. Nevertheless, he ended up cutting down the plate and table with that kind of distraction, and he left the table right away after mentioning that his car was in the same condition. So much for a wonderful family meal. After clearing her throat, Helen turned to Violet and asked, "So, how about you, Vi? How was school?" Her reaction was, "Nothing to report." She then asked me, "Hina?" "Nothing as well," was my next response. I didn't have to mention anything about how school was going if Violet didn't have anything to say about it. Helen saw how she was eating and then noted how I was eating. "Unlike Hina, who manages to eat some," she said. "You've hardly touched your food," she said. Vi stated, "I'm not hungry for meatloaf," with a gloomy expression. She appears to be pouting once more, and I can tell what's upsetting her. Her mother tried to console herself by saying, "Well, it is leftover night. We have steak, pasta. What are you hungry for?" To Violet, Dash teased, Tony riding her. "Oh no," to stress how terrible things are going to get on this. I closed my eyes. "Shut up," she exclaimed, her expression slightly irritated. "Well, you are." Dash appears defensive, much like a little brother would. Violet is furious about this and is warning him with a fork. I said, "Shut up, you little insect." "Really, a little insect? What sort of resurgence is that?" "Well, she is," Dash exclaimed, laughing. "Would you stop it already, Dash?" I ordered him to stop. "It's none of your business to get involved in this." Violet concurred with what I told him, saying, "Yeah, you heard her, Dash. It has nothing to do with you. Besides, she hasn't done anything to him yet," I said. "I saw what happened before your mother came to pick her up from school, and she hasn't made a move on him, so don't get too excited yet. Also, Tony's a who, not what. Maybe you need to get your ears checked," while her brother scowled at the speech I gave him. I noticed that Vi was chuckling at this. In any case, he truly deserved it. She grinned at me for supporting her and said, "Thanks, Hina, for backing me up on this." I grinned back, "No problem, Vi, just trying to defend the both of you, that is, since she is aware that I am standing up for both her and Tony." Helen exclaims, "Honey," in awe of my defense. Bob yelled, "Listen to her. You heard her. This ought to maintain the dinner's order." Dash lifted a cup to his mouth and mocked Violet once more, saying she'd eat it if we were having Tony loaf. "Oh no, Tony loaf, really? How many brain cells did he use to work on that, I wonder?" Her fuse goes off when she yells, "That's IT. How can you irritate her?" It makes me think of what I would do if Hanabi tried to make fun of Naruto by mocking Tony in this way. Her clothing are still visible, of course, but she turned invisible when they hit the ground after jumping from her side of the table to the other side to tackle Dash. In this battle, how does that help? During the scuffle, I hear Dash yelling, "Stop it, Violet." I can't help but laugh as he is attacked by a group of people wearing a thick dark blue sweater, dark blue jeans, white socks, and black sneakers. Since he provoked her, he deserved it. I'm not even sure why, but I noticed that Jack appeared delighted by this. I wonder how many times he's witnessed his siblings fight. In any case, Violet's control over Dash was short-lived, 3 seconds, as he managed to escape her hold, and she is now once again visible. He began racing in circles to attack her, shouting, "You're gonna be toast." Regretfully, I'm also being attacked. Why me? I quarreled. Because you helped her, that's why, was his reply. Therefore, you're guilty as well. Fortunately, Vi stops him with her force field ability, and she chuckles at much this power hurts him. Dash cried out in agony, "Ow." "Hey, no force fields." She retorted, "You started it," before turning to face me and asking, "Right, Hina?" "That's true, Vi," I appropriately replied to her. She went on, "See Dash. She knows because she saw the whole thing." In any case, Helen stopped him from tackling her by extending her right arm. To halt Violet, she stretched her left arm and commanded, "You sit down. You'll pay for this." Things don't seem promising. "Violet." Helen attempted to maintain order. Regretfully, she was pinned against the table as they continued their struggle beneath it, despite her arms being restrained, pulling her elongated arms underneath. She screamed out to me, "Hinata, bring their father here now." I stammered, "Why yes, ma'am." And then I walked away from the table to get Bob over and clean up this mess. He was reading a newspaper when I arrived to pick him up, and I used the Byakugan to see what he was reading. Simon J. Palladino, a lifelong supporter of superhero rights, had gone missing. That's Gazer Beam, isn't it? Strange minds do think similar, and it appears that he considered it as well. It's time to engage. Helen is yelling from the table, "Hinata, have you brought him here yet?" I took him there to observe the mess after turning off the Byakugan. "Do something. Don't just stand there," she commanded. "I need you to intervene." When Bob lifted the table, he said, "You want me to intervene?" "Okay, I'm intervening." What sort of intervening is this, really? The Parr family was fighting among themselves the first time they utilized their powers together, and I saw Jack swiping playfully at his brother's fiercely kicking legs while appearing completely unaware of the situation. This is one dinner battle I will never forget. Fortunately, the doorbell simply rang, and everything was put back in a normal and agreeable order. That's one method to put an end to the conflict. When Dash opened the door, Lucius was there. How kind of him. At least he called me Hina and included me in the greeting, which comes after Vi. I was shocked to learn that Bob had just punned. "Nice of you to drop by," Lucius said. "Ha," before his expression darkened. "Never heard of that one before," he said. "Is that correct?" "Hey, Lucius," Dash said, spitting out the water he had taken from the cup, but Lucius caught it before it hit the ground, leaving him unhappy. "I like it when it shatters," he said. I muttered to Vi, "What would happen if it shatters?" Regarding the result her brother anticipates. She appears astonished when I ask her this question and then whispers back to me, "That's gross, Hina, so don't even think about that." And I get that. Nevertheless, Bob took a leave of absence with Lucius because, according to Helen, they go bowling every Wednesday. I suspect that they're doing something behind her back, and I don't think it's what she refers to as bowling. In addition, the latter has a wife named Honey. Did any of them actually see her? I didn't either. Helen stared at Dash as soon as Bob left the house, and he gave her a guilty smile. It appears that she can't get over the difficulty he got from the prank that took him to the principal's office, so there will still be a conversation about it. She remarked, "Now it's perfectly normal," but was cut off. Violet began to rage. "Normal? What do you know about normal? What does anyone in this family know about normal?" she asked. Once more, here we go. Since we decided to have a study session between the two of us, I came to visit her 2 days ago, and that was not the first time I've heard her talk like that. She seemed upset when we used the word normal in our history lesson. This must imply that she will never be able to live a normal life despite her abilities. Helen tries to defuse the situation by saying, "Now wait a minute, young lady, we act normal, Mom. I want to be normal." Violet kept going on. "The only normal one is Jack Jack, and he's not even toilet trained." The next thing I know, Jack Jack is smiling at this as though he believes Mom just made a joke, if I recall correctly, about the toilet train part. As Violet and Helen gave him strange looks, Dash mumbled, "Lucky, I mean, about being normal." Before speaking all this, I inhaled deeply. "You know, Vi," I placed my hand on her shoulder, "I understand you wanted to be normal. Truth is, I wanted to be normal as well. In fact, I already got it a long time ago when I was supposed to be the heiress of my clan. My sister and I fought for this position, and I lost, so she gets to become the heiress. Despite this, I felt happy. I felt I didn't have to go on with my responsibilities in that position. That was my moment of feeling normal. As for you, Vi, you'll earn it eventually. You have to be patient about it, understand?" She calmed down, so it appears that my remarks were understood. The next thing I know, she's trying to find comfort by hugging me, and I've returned the hug. "Thank you, Hina," she murmured, with a hint of joy, "for sharing this with me." When we released our embrace, I noticed that her head was hidden beneath her sweater's neck, making her invisible once more. "Come on, Vi, don't just go all invisible just because you found someone you can relate to in wanting to become normal," I replied. "Oh, right, sorry," she says before returning to view. She held my hand and asked, "Can you stay for a while?" As in stay with me for the night. I could tell she wanted my company to feel comfortable. Helen blushed as I asked, "You're asking me to stay for a sleepover, right?" "Just as I thought, may I?" I asked, and she nodded. "Okay, I'll stay." She then gave me another hug before disappearing once again. At this point, I'm being held by an ensemble that includes a thick dark blue sweater, dark blue pants, white socks, and black sneakers. Underscore 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 after supper. It's time to change into pajamas and I get to dress up in Violet's room. I'm glad I was able to get some in this world because when I glanced in the mirror, I saw the pajamas I was wearing, a blue top with long sleeves and blue pants. She was wearing the same kind of pajamas, but they were gray, and she had white socks on her feet. I don't understand why anyone would wear socks while wearing pajamas. I've never seen anyone do that in my life. "What do you think of my pajamas?" I asked her as I turned around. "You look great," I say in response to her inquiry regarding her pajamas. "Why, thank you," she said, grinning at the praise. First, we decided to read teen magazines, which is interesting compared to the magazines I read in my world where the main focus is on ninjas. At least this type of magazine focuses on how teens deal with personal issues and have some fun. To be honest, I never had this thing called sleepover back in my world, and it looks like she's going to teach how a sleepover works. We then played a game called Truth or Dare, which I know well from my world because she was the first person to play either of them. I challenged her, "I dare you to become invisible in pajamas," and she accepted my challenge. Now that's a start. Look at me, empty pajamas wandering around by themselves. "It's my turn," she said. "What do you pick?" "Truth," I responded. She said to me, "Okay, Hinata, did you have a crush on that Naruto guy?" "Yes." And the reality is that she then inquired, "You haven't asked him out yet?" Before I gave her a stern look. From what I could gather, she hadn't made any headway with Tony. "Oh, right," she said. "In any case, it's a lot of fun before we have our snacks, and when 11 p.m. rolls around, it's time to go to bed." This is quite a night. Underscore 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 Hinata, wake up. When I opened my eyes, I saw Dash above me in addition to Violet. I sat on the sleeping bag I had packed for the night and yawned. What is it? We're going to eavesdrop on Mom and Dad, so we thought of inviting you to come along, Vi excitedly exclaimed. I woke up and said, what? Again? As I remembered what had transpired on Sunday night, I realized that it wasn't the first time they had asked me to listen in on their parents. Nevertheless, I glanced at the alarm clock and said, guys, it's 12:30 a.m., so no thanks, I'd rather not get involved in this. I attempted to sleep again, but I was compelled to participate in this action after hearing Vi mumble something in my ear. If you participate, I will teach you something about how to ease your friend's pain of being hated by his own village. After hearing those words, I consented to listen in on their parents because she had just made an irresistible offer. I waited for Bob in the dark using my Byakugan. Dash and Violet were astounded that I could see in the dark with this power, but they were even more shocked that I could see his energy, meaning that if it wasn't chakra being summoned in this world, I couldn't imagine what it was. And there he is. He entered through the back door rather than the front, and after he got inside, he went to the kitchen to grab a piece of cake. As he went on, the light turned on, and he assumed a fighting stance. The chair then moved to reveal Helen sitting there, with that crossed expression on her face. I said, this can't be good, as I switched off my Byakugan. Gee, you think? I asked myself as I turned back and saw that Dash was concealed on the neighboring chair. Violet was invisible, and her pajamas were still visible. We had been by the sofa to listen in on them. Helen added, I thought you'd be back by 11. With a worried expression, Bob countered, I said I'll be back later. I assumed you will be back later. If you came back at all, you'd be back later. Oh boy. Even if Bob tries to claim that he's back, their argument won't end because Helen discovered rubble on his black coat. He makes up an excuse about working out, but she doesn't believe it, and she also said that they can't blow cover again. This indicates that the family has been in trouble before because of him, and I can also tell that this isn't the first house they've lived in. How many times did they migrate, I wonder? In any case, I was correct. Bob is not keeping up his cover very well. He responded nonchalantly, the building's coming down anyway, and attempted to leave. Helen was shocked and exclaimed, what? How obvious can he get? You knocked down a building? Dash whispered to Violet and me, uh-oh, Dad's in trouble, obviously, I replied in a whisper. In any case, Bob is listening to the police scanner, which Helen finds annoying. I can actually understand what he and Lucius were doing every Wednesday, that is, doing heroic things, but the fact that supers are despised in this world will cause them problems. I'm also correct about Bob in that he is genuinely bored with his typical life, which is what he is doing. What is happening in this world? If that wasn't enough, Helen informed him that Dash, not him, was the subject of the debate. At least Bob, in contrast to her, is in favor of him going out for sports. Bob shouted because he'd be great. In response, Helen shouted, it's not about you, and attempted to assert her power by stretching. Isn't this realistic? When they heard Dash speeding and the flipping of magazine pages, at least their quarrel was over. We've been caught red-handed now, Bob began by saying, okay, Dash, we know you're listening, come on out. Helen then added, Vi, Hina, you too. Young ladies, come on out. Violet and I revealed ourselves from the coach while Dash exposed himself from the chair. In addition, she is now back in the spotlight. Helen stated sharply, I didn't expect you to be involved in this, Hina. If I participate, Vi will teach me something about how to ease my friend's pain of being hated by our village. I explained to her, explaining why I signed up for this activity. She addressed her by saying, then you better own up to her, young lady. Regarding the deal, Vi told her, don't worry about it, Mom. I got it all covered. Bob attempted to soothe us, saying, it's okay. Kids, we're just having a discussion. As we sat on the couch next to one another, Vi described the conversation in full. I agree with her that it's a really noisy one. The number of pretty loud discussions that took place in my world is something I will never forget. Yeah, but that's okay because what's important is that Mommy and I are always a team. Bob attempts to resolve this issue. We're always united against the forces of pig-headedness, suggested Helen. He muttered to her I was gonna say evil or something about what he was about to say. How obvious can he get? Helen said, we're sorry we woke you, especially you, Hinata. I told her that this awakening was nothing to be concerned about, saying, that's how ninjas in my world get ready for the night if they ever get attacked. If that's the case, everything's okay. Go back to bed, it's late. In fact, we should all be in bed, she said, easing her concerns. It's time to return to sleep. Helen shouted out to me, Hinata, as Violet, Bob, and Dash went to their chambers to return to sleep. I spoke to her, what is it, Helen? I never thought I'd say this, but thank you for what? For being with Violet, you know how she is, right? I told her, yeah, I know about how I felt about her. It's like looking into a mirror, I said. At least you two make good friends. Thank you for saying that. I plan to spend as much time as possible with Violet before returning to my own world as I went back to bed with her. Violet and I are creating a petition for our history project in the school hallways on another typical school day. Are you curious about the purpose of the petition? What, after all, are we protesting? In Shuricare, actually, the goal of our school project is to identify a business that is thought to be corrupt and start a petition against it. We also took images of the business and spoke with those whose allegations were rejected. Mr. Miller, the principal, came up to us and asked, do you girls think that company is crooked? You should have seen the place, Mr. Miller. Violet replies to the query. I went there one time with my father as he worked there, and I've been seeing customers having their claims denied, no matter how valid or dire they are. I added to this allegation, who could stand their claims being denied if it's an actual emergency? Good to know, Mr. Miller said with a smile for our initiative. Well, good luck on your campaign, he said. We have gathered hundreds of signatures so far, and once we have enough, we will go up against Mr. Huff, the boss, to finally cease his oppressive practice of rejecting people's claims. I see someone approaching us as we continue our demonstration, and I know who it is. I said, well, here comes Tony riding her at 1 p.m. And as I was saying it, I noticed Violet trying to flee. Given how shy she is around him, I believe it's time for them to have some social interaction because I did promise that today would be the day I tried out my little experiment. Fortunately, I had my wire strings with me and I captured Violet with them. She complained, why are you doing this to me, Hina? I just wanted to see what would happen if I got you two mixed while you aren't ready to talk to him yet. I replied calmly to her query. After all, I had my interactions with Naruto while I was shy, so why not you, huh? Try to reveal yourself to Tony just this once. I'll witness the consequences as soon as I throw her to the person she's crushing on. After a few seconds of staring into each other's eyes, they blushed, and the next thing I knew, they passed out. As anticipated, my experiment is now complete. Tony, I noticed his two mates currently arriving here. As he and his friend held Tony up, the blonde-haired teenager asked me, what is the meaning of this? As I held Violet in my arms, I explained I was just testing her reaction to interacting with this guy directly, that's all. The next question his black-haired companion asked me was, you mean like pairing them? If I'm being truthful, Yeah, something like that. As he and his friend dragged Tony out of here, the blonde understood what I was saying and remarked, I see. Well, good luck in getting them together after all. He hasn't asked a girl out just yet due to his shy nature. I see, despite his popularity at school, he hasn't asked any girls out yet. Getting him and Violet on a date should be the first step in their relationship, and I want to have a similar experience with Naruto. I used to wake her up by splashing her face with water. The woman mumbled, "Wah? Looks like you fainted from your first interaction with Tony." I explained to her what had just occurred. She began to blush when she hears this. Don't worry, I felt the same thing when I interacted with Naruto. Sometimes I fainted, sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I hid from him, sometimes I didn't. After all, I had my interactions with him while I was shy. I can tell by the expression on her face that she now understands what I'm saying. Teresa is back to worry us, saying, well, if it isn't the shy duo, here's a good advice. Don't investigate crooked companies like InsureCare. Otherwise, that's going to give you an amount of paperwork. Yeah, a lot of paperwork, Eloise replied. Which it will be denied. That's what InsureCare does. That's why we're running a petition on that place, Violet argued. To make sure none of their claims will be denied, no matter how valid or dire they are. Well, good luck giving yourselves some paperwork to work on, Eloise said, throwing a ball of crumpled paper in our direction. Fortunately, we were not struck by it. A random boy arrives to take up the crumpled paper and place it in the trash can while the two bullies are laughing at us. As Eloise grabbed him, Teresa yelled, "Hey, geek, stay out of this." The next thing we witnessed was her throwing all of that garbage at him from the trash container. That is just disgusting. Violet gets furious at this bullying and exclaims, "Okay, that does it. You two are way out of line." Teresa began rolling the bin toward us as they came to a stop, but I was able to move aside and Violet was able to stop it and return it to its rightful location. Inquiring about me, Teresa said, "So you really a foreigner after all? Let's get her." I maneuvered out of the path when she and Eloise charged at me. When they did it again, I was able to send them scurrying to a wall, leaving them covered in white paint. I gestured to the sign nearby and said, "Perhaps you should read the sign," adding, "It says, wet paint, so be careful where you're running into." Vi remarked, "That's a very nice performance, Hina," and she appeared pleased that I was confronting the bullies once more. "It's time to get to InsureCare and deliver our petition to Mr. Huff," she said. "We're heading to InsureCare now." When we arrived, we made the decision to ask several workers to sign our petition in order to determine whether any of them concur that the company they work for is corrupt. We went to one of the floors and were fortunate to obtain some signatures from workers who disagree with Mr. Huff's management style. As we went on, we noticed something fly into the drawer after exploding out of the cubicle. "What the?" Vi was in shock at what had happened. We looked and saw that Mr. Huff had been thrown there. Oh no, she investigated the source and discovered that her father, Bob, was the one responsible. Given his superhuman power, it's clear that his attitude changed from one of anxiety to one of perplexity as he approached us, saying, oh, after causing difficulty. "Vi, Hina, what are you two doing here?" he asked. "We came here to give our petition to Mr. Huff about how he needs to change his ways on how to run things here," I said to him. "Even though I don't want to think about it, Mr. Huff truly deserved to be thrown like that, but at least he's still alive. That should be enough for his retribution aside from our petition. You two have better get out of here before more trouble starts," he said cheerfully as he saw the paper of our labor. "Well, that's nice," he said, smiling. "Can I sign the paper as well?" he asked, and we nodded. He led us to the elevator, which took us to the first floor. Dicker was standing in front of us as the door opened. Someone must have told him about the damage Bob had caused to the building. With his typical nasty expression, he said, "Hello, Hinata, Violet. Fancy meeting you two here," he said. I returned the greeting. "Hello there, Dicker, just making sure our protest goes so well," Vi inquired. "You two already know each other?" "We've met, young lady," he stated. "The way she got here reminded me of her father." "I see," she said, comprehending his meaning. "Dicker came here to mind-wipe the individuals who saw Bob use his amazing strength to his own employer like a rag doll, so I can tell that he's fired as well. We left the building to allow him do his thing. I suppose he has no idea how to live a normal life. If nothing else, our petition will be successful." After Vi and I parted ways, I made the decision to go out to eat in the city. I chose to dine at a restaurant called the Happy Platter, which is a lovely family restaurant. As soon as I walked in, I knew this would be a terrific spot for supper. I sat down at an empty table. One server hands me the menu and says, "Here you go, miss." "Thank you," I said, grabbing the menu as I turned to face the waiter, who seemed surprised to see me. "Tony? Hinata." We all yelled, "What are you doing here?" "You first, Tony," I chose. "What are you doing here? Why are you wearing a waiter's outfit?" His response was, "What do you think? I work here part-time. My family owns the place, which I think is really lovely. How about you, Hinata? What are you doing here?" he said. "Just trying to eat out somewhere new here," I responded. "Oh, I see," he understands. "Anyway, as for my order, I'm thinking of Salisbury steak with mushroom soup," as I perused the menu. "For my drink, I would like to have orange juice, please, along with mineral water." He noted my request and said on it before leaving with the menu. Although I'm interested in learning how he obtained the necessary skills to work as a server, it will be discussed at a later date. I never imagined that I'd see him working at this same restaurant. It's kind of wonderful that his family gave him a job there. In any case, I waited half an hour for my food to arrive, and it was wonderful given how different the food in this world is from what I eat in my own. I completed my dinner, made sure to pay for it, and waited for Tony to give me my change. He grinned and said, "Thank you for dining in the Happy Platter. Always happy to try out new things." I replied with a grin, "By the way, Tony, there's something I would like to ask you." "What is it, Hinata?" "Did you happen to see a black-haired girl wearing a thick dark blue sweater walking around here?" "No, I haven't seen someone like that. Why do you ask?" Tony responded, "Oh, nothing. I suppose this indicates Violet hasn't been visiting this location, much less being aware of it." After that, it's time for me to return to my flat. Eating at this restaurant was a pleasant experience, and I hope Vi and I can return someday.